You're good, Ram. Go.
I can't see myself.
All right, we'll introduce the show while you figure that out. Good
Okay,
morning. You're in. Go for it.
all right. Sorry about that. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are in the world. This is Ram Ganesan, live streaming from Dojo Live, uh, joined by my co-host Tulio Siragusa and Conrad De Cruz. And today we'll be talking to Megan Conan and Ty Beard from ASTM. And the topic of conversation is strategies to make your training program pandemic proof. Megan and Ty, welcome to the show and look forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Looking forward to it
Thank
as
you.
well.
Same here.
That's great. So just to kick things off, can we just get a brief background about who you are and what you do in general, not just at ASTM? We'll get to that, but we'd like to just warm up our audiences to knowing the people that we're talking to first before we dive into the topic.
Sure. Megan, would you like to go first, or do you want me to go?
Sure. My name is Megan Conan. I am, in regards to my work with ASTM, I'm the e-learning project specialist currently. I've been in the learning and development space for over 15 years now, working very heavily in learning management systems and more recently in virtual event spaces. In my time outside of the office, I am an avid reader and definitely enjoy being outside in the sunshine, hiking, and taking in the good weather.
All right,
Ty?
and Megan, I need to read more. Hi, everyone. My name's Ty Beard, and I'm the Director of Live Training and On-Demand Solutions at ASTM. I've been in the learning space now going on 20-ish years. I got my start in L&D, where I spent 13 plus years mobilizing internal training departments. Since then, I've been at ASTM for the last 6-7 years, where we've had the fun and responsibility of pushing 300 plus live training and e-learning events in terms of total products outside of the office. I wish I could read more, Megan, but don't get the time there. But I do have a few audiobooks that I listen to, and I also have fun riding on my Peloton bike.
Oh, that's great. Peloton, that's the rage now, right? And it's not just the bikes, it's the treadmills and whatever else that they're rolling out. And it's amazing how it's transformed the world of exercise and working out. But that's good to know. It's so reading and Peloton. We'll try to keep that in as part of our conversation today. But anyway,
Okay.
just getting a little more into, I guess, the topic of the day, making your training program pandemic proof, right? Clearly, in-person training has been a big challenge for the last 15, 16 months now,
Yeah.
since the onset of the pandemic, in-person anything for that matter. But especially with training where you're gathering larger groups of people in one room, et cetera, for extended periods of time. So how have you and ASTM addressed that? And what are the learnings that you've got from that?
Okay, good question. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, we have lots of training events. Total products, we have about 350, but of those 350 products, we do about 100 live training events a year. And so, when the pandemic hit in March-ish of last year, we still had about 70 courses to go. So we had to transition very quickly to be able to offer those courses virtually. Thankfully for us, we already had somewhat of an infrastructure because we had a webinar program. And what that webinar program was is it gave us the opportunity to speak to the market, where we would have 30 minutes to an hour discussions with our members and with our customers. So we already had some systems in place to allow us to be able to facilitate those events. But what we didn't have was a precedence where we would take a course that was 24 hours, a 3-day course, and be able to offer that. So obviously it took some reskilling and some retraining of our instructors. In addition to that, we had to get them comfortable with training online and how to show up virtually, because virtual presence is a thing. And then third, we also had to get them skilled up on how to use those platforms, such as the Zooms and the WebEx. Thankfully, we were able to transition 70 plus. So not only did we transition the classes that were outstanding when the pandemic hit, we also were able to throw in a few.
That's great. So you were able to take that lessons learned and really apply that to expanding the program. That's amazing to hear. You know, what you describe actually in many ways brings me back to, I guess, our kids' experiences in terms of transitioning to an online learning regimen. And there was a lot of challenges that it posed, from attentiveness, presence, monitoring, compliance to some extent, audio, video, technical issues, and quality of delivery. But over a period of time, everybody kind of settled into that rhythm. It took time, sometimes months, I would say, for certain demographics, but I think everybody is nicely settled into this new normal. And actually, there's been some advantages, for example, saving on travel costs and whatnot. So are these courses that you deliver for external clientele or your internal staff?
Yes, so great question. I just want to take a step back just to tell you who the training department is. So we support ASTM Broader's mission by developing both the e-learning and live training events. We have, as I said, north of the 350 products that are geared towards external customers and members. So we don't so much support the L&D function, like the internal training anymore. Most of our training is geared towards the members or the external customers.
So if I could ask you, Ty, who are some of the customers out there that should be, if they're not already, aware of ASTM?
So our concentration is in the petroleum area, as well as construction, building and construction, as well as environmental. We have enterprise customers. We have a lot of the leading and largest petroleum manufacturing companies that take our training. A lot of our training is geared towards that frontline worker in a laboratory environment, quality managers, trainers, people that really need to know, okay, how the standard is conducted. What's nice about our training is we have the leading experts in the world that come together to build the standards, but they also teach the standards. We also work with them so that they can teach the standards. So what's nice is whether you're in a classroom and you can ask those questions to the instructor, whether that's virtual, in person, or whether you're watching an e-learning video, you're seeing step by step how that standard should be conducted based on what's written in those guidelines.
So I have a question. How has the program evolved during the pandemic? What are some of the nuances that you guys have learned that you had to adopt or make changes to it, or you leverage technology to deliver the programs? What were some of those things you faced as this happened, and like, oh my gosh, everything's remote, everybody's at home, how do we deliver this? How did that impact you guys?
We noticed that we could get a lot more intimate, honestly, with the customer. Sometimes when you're in a classroom environment, you're teaching to 12, 15 people at a time. But believe it or not, once we were able to transition that experience to online, we noticed that the instructors and the students, they were able to get a little bit more intimate in a setting similar to what we're doing now. Another thing that we noticed is that in some instances, the virtual format and the virtual experience served the customer even better. We didn't know that going in, but obviously after auditing the classes and speaking to our clients and speaking to the instructors, it's some cases where virtual wins, and we will continue to do virtual, into next year and the year after. Virtual is definitely a strategy of ours now.
So I'm wondering, did you guys find existing technologies that supported your needs, or did you discover that perhaps you need to develop something on your own? Like, how do you go out administering tests, and how do you, what are some of those nuances that maybe you discover? Hey, this is easy. It's nice. We can connect with everyone, but there's a few things that Zoom doesn't necessarily offer that we need. Was there anything come up for you guys that were like,
Oh,
we
yeah.
need this?
And I don't want to name drop, but there is one platform that's been out there for a while, but it doesn't stream video. And we needed the ability to stream video. So it had a lot of the other components that are great, like annotation tools to be able to check the pulse of students, but it didn't do 20% of what we needed or what we felt we needed to make the class successful. So yes, there was a system migration at the end of last year where we moved from one platform to another because of that. And
I think
I'll let Megan go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a large part of that too had to deal with retraining our instructors who were used to being in front of a classroom, and the only technology they needed was to turn on their laptop and click open the PowerPoint presentation. And now we were asking them to monitor video feeds of the learners and to run their presentation and to engage the learners by using the breakout rooms or the polls. And so, as Ty mentioned, the system that shall not be named didn't meet our needs really when it came to that. It wasn't as user-friendly for our instructors, and we were trying to smooth that transition as much as possible for both them on the front end and us on the back end as administrators for the program.
I see you both smiling, so this was probably quite an endeavor to try to resolve. I'm guessing. Conrad, I think you have a question.
I do, and this question actually is for both Megan and Ty. Megan, Ty, you mentioned about learner intimacy, and you touched upon a topic, Megan, about polling and reactions. Kind of want your feedback on the next topic, which is really about being agile. How have the learners, in your opinion, taken to this virtual fatigue or virtual intimacy? How do you think you guys have seen it come through?
Sure. I think we've definitely seen a growth and a change from the beginning in April when we did our first very rapid flip over from an in-person course to a virtual course. And took a look at what the learners were experiencing and where they were going. And as Ty mentioned, in person, a lot of our classes were 7-8 hour day courses. And we attempted that in the beginning to recreate that same experience virtually, which we learned very quickly wears out not only the instructors, but the learners, and began to switch those to break that out and make it a much more accommodating process to eliminate the fatigue. And to also meet the learners where they are and the fact that they still have day jobs that they're trying to get done. And so we would switch and make a class perhaps 4 hours a day over 5 days a week or consecutive week time to kind of help eliminate that. And it allowed the learners to be a little more relaxed, knowing the schedule, knowing they still had time during the day, at the end of the day, to go back and check their emails and do some work, which let them actually focus on the course in the morning.
There's definitely many benefits of going virtual, right? You can be more efficient with time, with logistics, preparation, and things like that, right? While you lose that in-person contact and some of the nonverbal communication cues, I think a lot of it has been made up pretty well by technology and cameras. Now, I have a personal favorite question. Do you ask your trainees to turn on their cameras or not? Is that a mandatory thing? How do you ensure engagement? This is a big question in all corporate meetings, right? Cameras or no cameras. And it depends on who you ask and what the type of meeting is. But, I'm just to let you know, I'm in the open, the cameras on camp. Okay. So, yeah, just curious.
What we've also been fortunate to do is hire outside company that monitors the technology. So at the beginning, we ask our learners to come in 15, 20 minutes early just so that we can do a quick tech check. And that's when we check their audio and their visual. And then we let them know if you're all set, you're ready to go. If you're comfortable staying on camera, stay on camera. If not, then you can turn them off. But I will say we do have some instructors where they have a personal preference that the learner cameras stay on.
Yeah.
And it's usually if the class is a little bit more hands-on in nature as
Right.
opposed to just lecture-based.
And exactly, even for the speaker, right? If they feel that they're talking to uh, just an image versus a person who's potentially nodding or not paying attention, it just changes the dynamic of the conversation, right? Because you want to get that feedback. Are my words making sense? Is it garnering attention? Are they bored, for that matter, right? Should I give them a break? But if it's just, cameras off on the other side, you don't even know what's going on the other side, right? Are they even at the screen? And that feedback loop is what we desire. It's not really the monitoring, right, of whether the person is paying attention, but you just want to know how your material is being perceived or received. And some of these topics can be pretty technically deep or intense or dry, right? So you definitely want to be able to make the most of it with the technology that you have at hand.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
agree.
I have taken some of the ASTM. I've seen some of the ASTM courses, and they are interactive. They're engaging. But the question is, are they more centered, Ty and Megan, towards a North American audience, or do you have, because you mentioned international standards, do they also attract global audiences?
Yes. And, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think that's something that with this virtual changeover, we've seen a major increase in engagement and attendance from our international audience who previously wasn't able to get the approval to travel due to financial reasons or other, being away from the office. So it's been that's one of the reasons we plan to keep a lot of things virtual to maintain that international appeal to attending our courses.
Yes. And I agree. And we had to make some accommodations on our side as well. So maybe that meant our instructors waking up a little early or going to bed a little late to try to accommodate people of different time zones.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the point of being agile. Once the waters recede post-pandemic, hopefully soon, how is it gonna change the new way of us working and you offering your courses globally? Have you all thought of a business model, Ty, that's gonna stick, or have you all adapted? Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. So 2 years ago, we actually hired a few international trainers to take care of the people within those local communities and local areas. So we obviously look to expand that program. In addition to that, the platform that we currently have now, the virtual platform, it allows us to be able to add interpreters to our events. So when the learner comes in, they can choose which audio stream, whether they want it to be English, whether they want it to be Spanish,
That's great.
so there's obviously
like
a lot
the
more
United
options.
Nations. That's how cool is that? Literally,
I
like
know.
That's amazing.
I know.
You have this thing in your ear and you're listening to the same audio stream in Spanish. Wow, that's pretty cool. I never thought of that.
Exactly. So, and that's why we want to keep virtual around, because as Megan said, it just gives us far more reach than we could ever do in person. And it's a lot more convenient and at a great rate for students. So it's a win-win for students as well as us.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
So working remote is challenging at first. Many of us were already doing it before the pandemic started. So over the years, you develop discipline on how to maintain your schedule, maintain sanity, and how to have boundaries around when you start and stop, right? So did that come up as a challenge for people and also for those participating as learners, like just having the discipline to be ready to go, not needing to travel somewhere to go in a physical classroom? And how did you guys help transition into that model?
Okay. So, did you?
Oh no, go right
take
ahead,
that
Ty.
one? Okay. So first thing, I had to change my leadership style. Totally, because in the beginning, I think everyone tried to replicate that office environment at home, and we found out really quickly that
That don't
is
work.
not going to work. I mean, you're going to have to get used to the dogs. You're gonna have to get used to the interruptions of the mailman or the children who may make a cameo every now and then. And you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
Also,
Okay.
I instituted 101s with my staff, and what I did was I threw away that checklist. I used to have this like, okay, where are we here? Where are we here? Where are we there? Instead, I just started with, well, how are you? How are you feeling? What's going on? Because you either had people who lived alone and they were lonely, or you had people who were multitasking and homeschooling as well as, trying to take care of the duties of their job. So I had to transition. And I think once I and other leadership transition, I think things just became a little bit more comfortable. Um, people stop trying to fake their way out of everything. It's like, this is my reality, deal with it. And
Yeah.
then once things, go ahead.
Oh, and I think then in relation to our learners, in the beginning, there was some chaos. There were some latecomers, and they were definitely in pajamas, coffee in hand, yawning on camera, and lunch breaks that were 10 minutes or breaks that were 10 minutes. You were getting folks strolling back in 15, 20 minutes later. But as Ty mentioned, I think as we learn to let go of the conventions of an in-person training and that rigidity and let it flow a little more organically, that folks became a lot more engaged. The engagement level, and all of us have been fortunate enough to sit in a lot of our live trainings or virtual classrooms now to see what's going on. We've seen a lot more engagement and paying attention and interactions in the chat panel and in polling in response to it. So I think that just had to flow as people realized, no, 2 weeks isn't 2 weeks. 2 weeks is turning into a year and some months later.
Do you find yourself a lot more busier, Megan, with all the record keeping the LMS has to do and all of the other?
It's been a change. Yeah, it's been a change. We started migrating all of our all of our live training rosters into the LMS because we found that we couldn't print certificates, which we used to do in the office for the live classes. That was just one of the things you don't think of. So we had to find an alternative way to provide those, as well as to give us our record keeping. So yeah, we've been playing and learning a new process in order to get that to work. But yeah, it's been a change, but a pleasant change.
And in terms of overall, I would say class size, did your class sizes go up or down, or and also are you measuring retention? Is retention better or worse or the same with respect to going virtual?
Great question. So in 2019, our average class size was around 19. However, in 2020, we saw our class size go from 12 to 19. So
Gotcha. Wow, that's a big jump.
So it did. And we're actually very proud of that increase. That we were able to go from 12 people per class in 2019 to 20 people per class in 2020. And we think that's because of the added convenience of being able to do it from home. No travel. When you go to sell our program to your boss, you don't have to worry about traveling. You don't have to worry about being out of the office.
Exactly.
As Megan said, we structure our program so that it's no longer than 4 hours per day, giving them the opportunity to do double duty, if there is a need. So yes, we're very proud of that outcome of 2020.
Yeah,
And
I
also,
think we should. Just kidding, but we should do a joke of retention versus if I'm taking my training in my pajamas versus business attire, right?
Right? I'd be interested in that study.
Yes, because it's been a laughed about topic, right? But when people are comfortable, right, in an environment where they feel that they're at home, so to speak, is retention better? Do they feel less pressure? Do they feel in an environment that they really want to focus on the learning, right? So I think there is definitely huge advantages to that, and I've seen this even in the children that I've spoken to. Right, initially they were yay, no school, and then they were like, oh my God, this is terrible, this is horrible, and then it went to a place of adjustment where they're now very comfortable. So even when we're going back to school, they kind of don't want to lose that virtual component to it. So I can imagine that being the same kind of evolution in online training.
Exactly. So as we look ahead to next year, what we're doing is where it makes sense, we're going to have some in-person events, but for the large majority, our events will still be virtual.
Yeah, I mean, if a class size goes from 12 to 19, that's a huge business case on both sides, both the trainees side and as for ASTM, more revenue, lesser costs for everybody because you're not splurging on the travel. I mean, I feel bad for the travel industry, but somebody else is benefiting here, the students and the teachers.
Yeah, for sure. We found that we had to, rather than cancel classes, we had to add classes because we were hitting our capacity for individual class sessions.
So I'm curious, being interested in how technology is evolving and changing the way we do things. If you guys were to build from scratch the ultimate platform for running your training, and you had a magic wand and all your wishes could come true, what would it look like? I'm curious to learn what's not out there right now that could solve, because it sounds as though you put together a few different things, right? What would the ultimate platform look like for distant learning for your kind of environment, which might benefit other distant learning companies as well? I'm just curious, through your experience, what you've learned, like, this is what we ought to create, or this is what ought to exist. What would that be?
Okay. So for me, Megan, hopefully you don't mind if I take this first, but for me, it would be a place where the learner could register. And then after they register, obviously they receive all of the notifications and information about the event. Also, it would be a place where the learner would be able to download digital files that go with the event. It would be a place where they could survey, give us both formative as well as summative assessments if need be. Some of our courses have exams associated with them, so we would want to be able to assess within a platform. And then last, we would probably want to be able to give them some form of credential, whether that's a certificate or a digital badge.
All right, guys, you guys take some notes. Sounds like a new product.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think in
we can build that for you.
Please. Aside from the administrative side, I think taking the best pieces of all of those virtual platforms that are out there. So as Ty had mentioned, being able to stream video, being able to have engaging polling sessions, workspaces for them to go to, breakout rooms, as well as making it simple for the instructor, giving them a safe space, a chat panel that's not visible by the learners for them to vet to their hosts or their producers about things that may be going wrong or that they have questions out. Because I think a lot of the platforms just put you front and center for everything. So there's no safe space to feel like you can make a mistake and then turn it into a meaningful mistake. It just is kind of out there to the public.
Got it. Yeah, so really fully leveraging technology to its fullest extent. All of these features are something that we've definitely run into in one platform versus the other, but bringing it all together into one cogent, coherent experience is what we're looking for. Fantastic. So we're coming up on time. Any other closing remarks for the audience as we bring this home?
I would say just be prepared, be ready for change and not afraid of it. Just embrace the change and know that everyone else right now, especially with the pandemic and this kind of a situation, everyone's going through the same events that you are. So no one's judging, everyone's in the same boat, and we can all really learn from what everyone else finds out. What you've found might be a great technology for someone else or a great training or best practice. So
what Megan's saying to the audience is, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yes, and add lots of sugar.
Good luck.
Give you lemon, make lemon meringue pie.
Ty, any closing remarks from your side?
Sure. Just remember, my grandfather, who's probably one of the most brilliant, smartest people I've ever met. He would always say, Ty, always stay ready, and you don't have to get ready. And I think that's what 2020 was all about. So my motto would then be his, always stay ready with a modifier. But if you're not ready, be nimble, be agile. Don't mind being ready for change.
Fantastic.
And if you're not ready, hide behind the logo.
Exactly.
Good one there. Thank you again, Ty, Megan. Fantastic talking to both of you all. It was great learning and enjoyed the conversation. Once again, you're all watching Dojo Live, sponsored by Encora. This is Ram Ganesan, joined by my co-hosts, Conrad De Cruz and Tulio Siragusa. Thank you. Back to you, Tulio, if you want to make any announcements.
Yes, come back at 12 o'clock. We have another show, 12 p.m. Pacific, and that'll be it for the rest of the week. So come back, 12 o'clock. You can see the show. Let me look that up real quick. I wasn't prepared. I apologize. Shame on me. The show coming up is Healthy 4.0 with Sherry Zhang, who's the CEO at Genopalette. We're going to be talking about how to personalize your nutrition. So check it out, 12 o'clock Pacific. See you then.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
We're
Elena?
still live.
Okay. Keep that smile on.
All right, you got to take us off the air, Elena. All right, who's got a good joke?
You said to me to get some lemon.
While we wait to get off the air. It's eggplants. It's neither an egg or a plant. Discuss amongst yourselves.
I have a feeling Elena's having technical issues.
Yes. It's not letting me. Okay, well, I guess perhaps we should just all hang up and then hopefully the stream will stop.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you
for being
very
with
much.
us.
Have a great
Thank you.
day. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.